Hi, everyone. My name is Braxton Montier. I'm doing an interview for UFLTV, and I'm here interviewing. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Constable Travis Reitz, and I guess I'm a process server, but a little bit more than that as well. Been in the industry for about 28 years, so have a little bit of knowledge on that.
Wonderful. I have a couple of questions for you. So,
Sure.
for viewers who may not know, what exactly does a process server do in a divorce or family law case?
Sure. So a process server is the person who's hired to serve the court papers. Now, if it is just a process server, that can be anyone over the age of 18, but they're allowed to serve a summons, a small claims, a subpoena, just some of the basic papers. So in this type of case, they would be serving the summons and petition for divorce.
Wonderful. Um, why is proper service of legal papers so important for a court can move forward with a divorce or custody case?
If the paper isn't served properly, then the case really shouldn't move forward. I've seen it a couple of times where things were served improperly by another process server. And later down the line, when they found out it was served improperly, they had to start all the way over, and it really hurt the case and extended the time that the case went on. So, having that first paper served properly, especially with the summons, because that's where they either win the judgment or the divorce can move forward, it's extremely important.
Okay. Many people picture dramatic movie scenes when they think about being served. What are the biggest misconceptions about process service? What do people normally get wrong?
Yeah, so I've seen some funny movies with people being served, and you're right. They make it dramatic. In fact, there's a guy on YouTube that has his own reality show about serving process, and he makes problems. And so that's not very typical. Most of the time, it's actually quite boring. As a process server, we've got the court papers. We walk up to the residential door, we knock on the door, we ask for the person, we fill out the service stamp, we hand it to them, and we leave. Most of the time, there's really no conflicts, there's not a lot going on. Once in a while, they'll know we're coming, and when they are served, they're a little bit emotional because they know a divorce is happening or something else is happening, but very seldom is it very dramatic and there's not a lot going on. Once in a while there is, but I guess that's why we always wear body cameras to capture what's happening in case something really goes wrong.
Okay. Do you have a cool story from a time that you've done process service or anything like that where it has gotten a little bit dramatic?
Yeah, we've had several. Most of them with divorce situations haven't gotten really dramatic, or they have cried and asked some questions. But we do, as constables, we do a lot of other types of papers as well, and so we've had some really weird situations where we've had to have SWAT teams come. We've had people hurt themselves, unfortunately. And sometimes it's kind of fun though, because you'll be serving someone that's a little bit famous or that's on TV that you've seen. You might serve them at the airport as they're getting off of an airplane, and so there's a lot of unique situations. I think I've personally served over 20,000 different types of papers during my 20 whatever years of serving, so I've seen a lot. Nothing at the moment stands out super crazy, but sometimes we see airplanes, super fancy cars, and so it can be fun.
How does a constable differ from a process server?
Sure.
What can a constable do that a process server can't?
Sure. So, like I mentioned, and it's actually written in state statute. So, if you're ever bored, you can look up Section 78B-8-302. And essentially, a process server can be someone over the age of 18 that's not affiliated with the case. So, you can't have like your brother serve it or something like that. You do need somebody that's a non-affiliated party to serve it. But then there's another type of service, which is a private investigator, and they can serve a few more types of papers. And then you have the constable and sheriff, where we can serve everything. So we'll serve the simple papers like a summons or a small claims, but we also do protective orders. We do evictions. We do warrants. We seize property, pursuant to a writ of replevin or a writ of execution. And so a constable or a sheriff, we have to go through the police academy. We have to do a lot of training. Uh, in order to stay active, as a certified peace officer. So that would be the difference is you're going to see a constable or a sheriff show up in uniform. If I'm out in the field working, usually I have my bulletproof vest on. I've got my tasers, my gun, just kind of everything. A process server, most of the time, some of them do dress a little more professionally, but some of them just look like Joe from down the street and they walk up and serve you. That can be both good and bad. Good because just looks like some random person and they may open the door, where sometimes if you show up in uniform, they might hide from you. So,
Yeah, that I can understand the feeling of somebody who is, they see somebody walking up, all dressed up as like a cop or a sheriff, and just going, "Well, I haven't done anything. I don't know why they're here," and then just freaking out and hiding. So,
yeah.
I can see that happening.
Oh, yeah.
So, um, when someone files for divorce in Utah, what usually happens between the moment the petition is filed and the moment someone like you is asked to serve the papers?
Sure. So, what should happen is if they're serious about getting the divorce, they don't want to postpone in getting us the papers to serve. The reason is the papers are only good for 120 days. And so we see sometimes they'll file the petition for divorce and then they rethink about getting the divorce, which if you're going to try to work it out, fantastic. But if you know it's a lost cause, it's better to quickly get us the papers. And the reason is if the people end up hiding or they, maybe the other spouse works three jobs and they're really hard to get a hold of, if the 120 days comes, you have to pay all that money over again to get it refiled. So it's important to quickly get us the paperwork so we can get it out for service because a lot of people really do hide.
Do you find that people hide more often than not? Would you say that it's like above 70% or 75% of the people that you serve, if they have enough time and notice, they try to duck it and hide?
It depends on the type of paper. There are certain papers we serve that for sure people hide a lot on. Like, for example, protective orders, people seem to hide a lot more on. On divorce cases, it's probably 50-50. Most of the time, people do know what's coming, and some of them want to be vindictive and make the process really rough, so they'll purposely hide. However, other people, they're like, great, what took so long to get here? They're happy to take the papers. They'd like to just get the process moving so they can move on with their lives. But I would say with divorces, it's probably 50-50.
Okay. Um, in divorce and family law cases, what kinds of documents are you typically asked to serve? I know you said that you've done petitions and you've done some of the other stuff. Are there some documents that aren't as typical that you are asked to serve?
Yeah, so we do serve everything where, for example, a process server or a private investigator, they can only serve certain papers, but some of the really unique ones, and I actually don't care to serve them. Sometimes we actually get a writ of assistance where we have to go in, seize a child from one parent and deliver them to the other parent. Those can be very stressful. Those are the ones where a lot more drama comes up, especially because both parents are upset with each other. Both parents think that they're the proper one that the child should be with. And so when you go and you physically have to take the child from one parent to take to the other, it can get a little bit crazy, especially because sometimes a child really doesn't want to go. But most papers are pretty standard. You have a lot of order to show causes, orders to attend hearing, notices of hearing, the summons of petitions, motions to enforce. Most are pretty standard, and we do them all.
Okay. What does a typical service attempt look like from your perspective? Walk us through the process from receiving the assignment to completing the service.
Sure. So most of the papers we get nowadays are done through email or, uploaded online. Some people do still come to our office and physically hand them to us, which is totally fine. Once we receive the papers, we have to organize them in a way that the server is going to know what comes back to the office and what all gets served to the respondent. So there's certain service stamps we put on it. So by state law, you have to put the date you serve them, who you serve them, where you serve them at. You have to sign it. And so there's certain stamps we put on it. So once it's totally ready to go out, which is the day we receive it, we'll give it to the deputy. The deputy goes out to serve it and they start attempting. Now, we hope to catch them on the very first time. If it's at a business, we typically go during the day when the business is open. If it's going to be at their home, we'll usually go at nighttime between 7 and 10 p.m. and on the weekends, unless we're told, hey, they're home all day or they work a weird shift.
Yeah.
Now, literally, we just have a route of, 50, 60 papers that we go out on. We get to the house. Really, you just go up to the door, you knock, And I always alternate between knocking and ringing because sometimes they hear one and not the other, or maybe the dog will freak out if they hear one and not the other. And we usually don't wait over 2 or 3 minutes because if someone's going to hide, if they don't answer the door within 2 or 3 minutes, they're not going to answer in 20 or 30 minutes either. And so we'll knock. Once they answer, we're always very polite. We'll just, hey, is John home? Hey, John, Constable Reitz, I've got a court paper for you. It's a summons and complaint from, Jane Doe, whoever it is, and we offer it to them. Once they're served, we fill out the service stamp on their copy and on our copy, and we bring it back to the office. The office will create what's called a proof of service, and that proof of service goes with the original summons to the court so that the court knows it's been done, and then we'll send a digital copy or we'll mail a copy to the plaintiff as well.
Hmm, wonderful. Um, in Utah, courts generally require personal service at the beginning of a divorce case. What does personal service actually mean in practice? Practice, and if somebody won't take the papers from your hand, can they prevent being personally served?
Sure. So in Utah Rules of Civil Procedure in Rule 4, it talks about service and it talks about how to serve a summons. And so personal service is a little bit misleading in that sense. Now, some court orders truly have to be served on the person and only that person. For example, a protective order, a warrant, an order to show cause, those have to go to the person only. But personal service in Utah is essentially serving anybody that lives at the home over the age of 8 or over the age of 14. So if you get to the home and the person you're looking for isn't there, technically you can serve any other resident over the age of 14 unless they have some type of disability and you can tell mentally they're not where they need to be. And so you can serve the person personally, you can serve their spouse, you can serve another roommate, just anybody. However, if it's the grandmother visiting for a week, that
Hmm.
doesn't count. If it's the nanny that's there for the night babysitting, that doesn't count. It does need to be a true resident. And then if they don't want to be served, it actually states, and I'll just read it from here so I don't mess it up. If the person to be served refuses to accept a copy of the summons and complaint, or in this case, with family law, summons and the petition, service is sufficient if the person serving the same, that he states the name of the process and offers to deliver it them. And so, really, if you get to the door and you ask, hey, is Jane home? Yeah, I'm Jane. What can I do for you? Jane, I've got a summons and petition for you from Robert Smith. I'd like, let me fill it out and I'll give it to you. So you've verified it's them, you've offered it to them, you've told them what it is. If they say no way and they close the door, it really doesn't matter. You've already identified them, you've offered it to them, you've stated the name of the service. They are served. You can leave it there on the doorstep.
Okay. Um, what are some common tactics people use to try to avoid being served? You said hiding. Is there anything else that they try to pull out to avoid it?
Most of the time, they just won't open the door. Sometimes we'll get there, we'll knock on the door, and then you'll see the lights all turn off. You'll see the TV turn off, or you can hear them inside talking, and you'll knock and knock and knock, and they just won't come to the door. That's the most common is this refusing to answer the door. I mean, if you're at work, sometimes they'll have coworkers say, hey, if someone comes in looking for me, just tell them I'm not here currently. That's pretty common as well. Sometimes you can tell they're lying and, you say, hey, just let them know it's nothing serious. We just need to talk to them for a couple of minutes. And, a lot of times they'll go back to their cubicle or whatever and bring them up front. But at the home, that's really what the most common is. They just refuse to answer the door.
Okay. Um, when they are trying to avoid being served, what strategies can you use to legally complete the job? I know you said that once you've identified them, you can just drop it on the porch. Are there any other strategies that you can use?
Sure. So when people are hiding, some clients will want us to stake out the house and watch for them to come or go. And, we'll kind of park across the street or down the street. And once we see them come out to get into their car, we'll get out of our car, walk up, and we'll serve them. The tricky part is with these are civil matters. You can't pull them over. You can't chase them down the street. So you do have to be smart and careful about it, but really staking them out or finding them elsewhere. Some people have a really set schedule. They go to church every Sunday at such a time. They go to work they come home from picking the kids up from school exactly at 3 p.m. every day. So you can kind of be there waiting for them to get home. In the movies, people dress up as a UPS guy, a FedEx guy. They bring roses and pizzas. And if a process server did that, they'd probably be okay. But unfortunately, us as officers, we can't deceive on civil matters. You can't deceive the person you're trying to serve. And so you do have to be careful about how creative you are. But at the same time, if they do hide, there are other methods of getting them served in the future. So, for example, if we get there, we've been there 3 or 4 times, maybe 5 or 6 times, and the cars have been there. We've run the plates. We know it's theirs. We can see the lights on. We can hear them inside. They've got cameras, doorbell camera and all that. We can do what's called a declaration. We'll state, hey, we've tried these times. This is what's happened. They're definitely hiding. And the petitioner in this matter, they can actually file with the court what's called a motion for alternative service. They can state what problems they've had. They can attach our declaration, and the judge can allow service to happen through posting it on the door, through social media like Facebook message. We can serve them that way. We can serve them through email. We can serve them through text message. There are other methods, but I don't think they're near as effective. But email, text, Facebook, things like that are easy ways that we can serve them. So if someone does hide, it's not the end of the world. We can get alternative service, serve them through alternative methods, and that counts the same as personally handing it to them.
Wonderful. From your experience, does avoiding service usually help somebody, or does it just delay the inevitable? Like you said, there are multiple ways that you can get them served. There's alternative service. Are they just fighting against the dying of the light, or is there an actual method to their madness?
So it definitely does not help them because we really can get alternative service on the summons. Now, for example, if it's a warrant and they're hiding, that's a little bit different. You can't get alternative service on a warrant. So, but on the original summons, when you're trying to serve them, it really doesn't help. Eventually, they will get served. The problem is sometimes the other party is granted the service fees. So, standard service fees aren't usually that much. It's based on distance from the court and a few other things. So, the payment might be, $35 is typically the cheapest. It could be $70, $80, depending on how far it is. However, if you hide and the server has to do a whole bunch of extra things, you might have a $150, $200 fee. And if the judge says, hey, you're going to have to pay for that because you were hiding, that doesn't help, the other person. It just hurts them really. And ultimately, they will be served at some point.
That makes sense. Um, like you said earlier, divorce and custody cases can get emotional. Do you ever encounter really tense or really dangerous situations while serving papers?
Yes, with specifically family law type matters, usually that comes into play more when we're doing a protective order. A husband
Mhm.
and wife, they've been in a fight, the wife doesn't feel safe, or the husband, it could be either way, but one of the parties gets a protective order. We have to go and we serve it. And typically the sheriff serves the majority of those, but we do quite a few as well. When we get there, the protective order usually tells them they have to leave the property, and we can give them, a few minutes to grab their essentials. And then there's going to be a court hearing where they can tell the judge their side of the story, and then the judge can make the determination if they get back into the home or what happens. But it's not an eviction per se, but when you go and tell someone they have to leave their home, they have to leave their family, their kids, and go elsewhere immediately, that can be very emotional and it can cause problems. Sometimes we have to take a couple of deputies with us just to be safe.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. If emotions are already high and you go, hey, you got to leave, here's
Yeah.
the court order. Some people, I imagine, really, really don't like that. Maybe want to fight you, maybe want to just tell you about how it's so unfair, or, maybe try to destroy the house. So I can imagine that would get out of hand pretty quickly.
Definitely it
Uh,
can. Yeah.
yeah. Um, I know you mentioned that sometimes process servers will just dress professionally, or you'll even wear a bulletproof vest. Are there any kind of other um, like safety precautions that you would take while serving papers?
Sure. So if we're told beforehand to be careful, something may happen, then we'll treat it a little bit differently. But on most types of service process, it's going to be very simple. However, as I'm training our new deputies, and I would say for anybody, but as you approach the house, look for an escape route. If you're getting to the door, look for somewhere to go in case it does go south. I never try to park right in front of the house. I don't park in their driveway. Not safe. If you need to get away, you've got to get somewhere far enough away that you'll be safe. Once in a while, it's a bad situation. A lot of the new housing going in are more townhouses, and there is no street parking. And so sometimes you do have to find somewhere else totally to park, or maybe park right kind of in front of their house. But most of the time, I would say park across the street, up a house or so, walk to the door, and just be smart. If your gut tells you, hey, be careful, maybe go back a different day. If you're approaching the house, everybody's out in the front yard partying and drinking. Not that that's always a bad situation, but if you don't feel comfortable at that time, just go back another time or have someone else go with you so there's a couple of you, and then hopefully you're safe.
Yeah, that way you can't get outnumbered or trapped in. Uh, the last thing you want is somebody to, get way too emotional and try to grab you or hurt you just because you're trying to serve some papers. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Um, so, what are some of the mistakes that people make when they try to serve the papers themselves instead of hiring a professional? Everybody's kind of heard the story or seen the movie where the husband or the wife goes, I'm getting a divorce from you. Here you go. Here are the papers," or they'll try to make a spectacle of it. What are the mistakes that they can make?
Sure. So there is what's called an acceptance of service. So sometimes a spouse will hand the other spouse the court papers and there's an acceptance of service with it. And if that spouse is like, yeah, this is a lost cause, let's just all go ahead and sign it, then you actually can just hand it to them. The problem is most of the time that's not the case. Either the other party doesn't want the divorce, reality hasn't hit them yet, and they're not going to sign the acceptance of service. So that would be the number one mistake, is not just having somebody serve it in the first place. But if there is the case where you can mail it, but the person that you're serving has to be the one that signs for it. So it'd basically be, certified return receipt mail, and they sign for it. If somebody else in the house signs for it, it doesn't count, and it can't really move on. Just having like a neighbor serve it, technically, like I said, they can be over the age of 18 and not a party to the case. The problem is the proof of service. If the proof of service isn't filled out correctly when it goes back to the court, they may have to have it reserved. Or if the service stamp, and there's certain things that it says you have to put on the front of the paper, the date, the location, who you gave it to, et cetera, et cetera. If that's not done properly and that person that was just served finds out, or they have an attorney that's just looking for any loophole, then that could be detrimental as well, because then service could happen again. And sometimes the other party then will prepare the divorce papers the way they want them done and have them served in the meantime. And now it's like, okay, both parties have filed, both have kind of been served, and the court has to figure out, which case are we going to go with? And it can just become a headache and waste a lot of time.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Especially if you're trying to make the process smoother and faster. Um, if someone knows that they're going to be served, what is the smartest way for them to handle the situation?
If the divorce is agreeable to both parties, the smartest thing would be just for them to sign an acceptance of service and move on with the case. However, most
Mhm.
of the time that's not going to happen. So I have had defendants or respondents, I guess in a divorce case, it'd be a respondent. I have had them actually call us and say, hey, I know you're trying to reach me. Go ahead, let's set up a time and you can come to my house, or I'll just come to your office and get served. We probably have 5 to 10 people a week with different types of lawsuits come to our office just to get served. If nobody answers the door when we go, a lot of our deputies will leave a note after the second or third time, and then the respondents will call us and set up a time. So if you know you're going to be served, there's really no reason to prolong it. Just, reach out and say, hey, who are you having serve me? And then we'll just set up a time and make it convenient for everybody. We can even meet at a neutral location. If you want to meet at the Maverick on the corner, great. If you feel embarrassed because someone in a uniform comes to your door, we're happy to meet anywhere. So we'll make it easy
Yeah,
on them if they want to make it easy on us.
wonderful. Well, that was the last question that I had. Um, if somebody needs something served on somebody, or other constable related or process service related stuff, where can they find you?
Sure. So our main office number is 801 255 5468. It's easy to call. You can get all the information from us. If you'd rather just email us, our email address is info@constablereitz.com. It's the same as the spelling on my shirt over here. info@CONSTABLEREITZ.com. We're happy to help anybody, and we'll make it as easy as possible. In fact, we have court boxes at most of the courts. You can even drop them off there and then call us later to set up payment arrangements.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you.